Hello, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And today, a special playing of my video of the ceremony itself on November 22nd of 2025, a celebration and memorial service of John F. Kennedy. It's a dramatic presentation. I'm amazed at the fact that there's some drama going on, and apparently, these local folks who really know what was going on have struggled for years and years, decades, to tell the story. Let's listen to them as we hear from Dovie Wiley, from Judith Ferry Baker, from Chris Milligan, David Denton, and a wonderful Navy bugler who will sound taps at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to turn the show over to the JFK Historical Group, who are on the grassy knoll right where Zapruder was, where President Kennedy was shot. And I am ready to play the video. It's me walking in the direction of Dealey Plaza, and you'll see how it develops from there. You'll see some drama, and it's very interesting to hear the speakers. I'm looking forward to hearing it again myself, so let's get started.
And on the morning of November 22nd, 1963, in Suite 850 of the Hotel Texas, he opened a small prayer book one last time, Psalm 27. Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Then he walked into the rain, hand shaking, heart steady, and flew toward Dallas, toward a city that loved him, and toward a destiny he had long ago accepted. So here we stand, 62 years later, in the very place where history broke our hearts. Hearts heal, cities rise, legacies endure. And every time a child asks in the 6th Floor Museum, why did he come if it was so dangerous? And a parent answers, because he refused to let his fear win. His courage then lives again. Every time someone remembers that the same ground that once received tragedy now grows hope, his faith triumphs again. And every time a leader in Washington, D.C. chooses the harder right instead of the easier wrong, his example still speaks. And every time one of us, ordinary citizens, decides to speak truth in a meeting, to stand up to a bully, to vote our conscience instead of our anger, to reach across the aisle that feels 1,000 miles away, John Kennedy's spirit walks beside us. Because the unfinished work is still ours. He once said, here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. He believed that government is not the enemy of the people nor the savior of the people, but the instrument of the people when the people are brave enough to use it well. Let them promise that we will not leave them a country too frightened to dream big dreams. Let us promise them that we will not leave them a government too big for big problems or too cynical to believe problems can be solved. Let us promise them that we will not leave them a politics of division, but a politics of addition, where we argue fiercely because we love this country and each other dearly, and then we work together because we love it more. Let us promise them leaders who remember that courage is not the property of one party or one generation or the government itself, but the birthright of every American willing to pay its price. Let us promise them that we will guard the flame of curiosity, the flame of compassion, the flame of moral clarity that John Kennedy carried into this plaza on a bright November noon, and that we will pass it hand to hand, heart to heart, until it lights their way as an eternal flame. Dallas loves you still, Mr. President. Texas loves you still. And America's leaders and America's people still need your kind of courage. The courage to do the right thing when the right thing is the hardest thing. May God bless John and Jackie Kennedy. May God bless the Lone Star State that opened its arms to him, grieved him with broken hearts, and has honored him ever since with lives committed to the causes for which he gave his last full measure of devotion. We're not here to see the dream through to its end, but we are here to keep it alive. We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall remember in November. Thank you and God bless you.
Mr. Dory Wiley, Lord have mercy. From Dallas, getting involved in trying to understand what happened here, because, you know, they weren't happy at the hit that their city took. Okay, and so when local people get involved in exposing the corruption and facilitating the truth, we're getting along. Now, it's my great pleasure here to introduce Mr. David Denton. Okay, he's a professor at a college up in Illinois, and he's been teaching his students. And then, you know, he got involved with the conferences here in town. And, you know, these conferences, people come from all over, from Europe and other places, to try and understand what happened, because if you were alive when it happened, you know that it was traumatic and our country changed. And so, Mr. Denton, these conferences aren't easy to put on. They cost money and all that kind of stuff. And when we were kind of running out of gas, kind of running on these conferences, Mr. Denton stepped up, and he's been running a very good conference here for about 5-6 years. Professor David Denton.
Well, thank you, Chris. Yes, my name is David Denton. I teach at Olney Community College, and I'm grateful to be here today. I've been here for the past 20-30 years on this day, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all very briefly. I think most of us are here because we are passionate about justice and truth. I think many of you might have, seen the movie JFK. I told someone last night, maybe the most significant thing from that movie was a comment about we are suckers for the truth. I think that's why we're all still here after 62 years later. And I think in some respects, we're closer to the truth. When people say, they talk to me a lot and say, we'll probably never know. I think that's BS. I think we already know a lot. I just think we need our institution to recognize what's already out there. That's as significant as getting more truth. Okay? I am a history professor. And I think, 62 years later, will we get that institutional validation? Will we see that day? Will it be our generation or the next generation? Since I am a history guy, I'm going to give you a little story because I think it's important. Early in 1942, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. The country was in hysteria. They needed a scapegoat. That scapegoat became the Japanese Americans, if you know that story. President Roosevelt was pushed into the idea of passing an Executive Order 9066, which put American citizens, Japanese Americans, in internment camps. And one of the most egregious things that we've done in our history. The one person that stood in the way of that was FDR's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "You cannot do this." You cannot do this to American citizens, no matter what the public thinks. And I think this is similar to JFK, that you know, she took that stand for justice even when there were, you know, everyone else seemed to be against us. And the reason why I bring that up, Eleanor Roosevelt died in 1962. She never got to see the day when that justice was righted. In 1988, they passed the Civil Liberties Act, officially apologizing to Japanese Americans. We righted a wrong. So whether that happens for us, the folks that have been in this a real long time in our lives, or the next lifetime, we still seek justice, and we hope to get it. Thank you very much.
Larry Rivera, are you around here? He's the next speaker. Larry. Larry. Come on up, Larry. Larry is a researcher out there. And, you know, one thing that Larry is doing, he's using technology, okay, to look behind the screens, you might say. And he's also starting to use AI and different things to try and help decipher some of the lies that have been told to us. Larry Rivera.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Larry. I'm a researcher, a historian, author. I've been asked to say some words in Spanish, something that's never been done. And here it goes. Tal día como hoy, hace 62 años, en este mismo lugar ocurrió el evento más trágico y traumático e importante de nuestra generación. Las repercusiones del asesinato del presidente John F. Kennedy son aún sentidos en el mundo al día de hoy. Dealey Plaza se ha convertido en un importante santuario histórico para los que a diario luchamos porque este crimen no quede impune y sin resolver. Contaba yo con apenas 6 años cuando, viviendo en una base militar en Alemania, observé la reacción de mi querido padre cuando un viernes 22 de noviembre, ante la noticia del asesinato, cabizbajo expresó su tristeza y preocupación por el futuro de nuestra nación. Esa reacción quedó plasmada en mi memoria, despertando la curiosidad que me llevaría a investigar el suceso hasta el día de hoy. En mí despertó un voraz deseo de leer y consumir todo material impreso que existía en ese momento. La primera vez que pisé este santuario fue en el año 1991. Abrumadoramente sentí el misticismo que permea aquí ante el pensamiento de lo ocurrido. Mi primera impresión, como muchas personas, fue de lo pequeño que es este lugar en comparación con las películas, fotos, videos que estaba acostumbrado a ver y estudiado. Desde ese momento en adelante quedé conmovido y decidido en ayudar a esclarecer el caso con la meta de obtener justicia para John Kennedy y la exoneración completa de Lee Oswald, que nada tuvo que ver con el asesinato. En el año 92 regresé a Dallas para involucrarme y colaborar con el antiguo Centro de Información del Asesinato, aquí mismo en la Elm Street, dirigido por Larry Howard y J. Gary Shaw. En el año 93 asistí al simposio del 30 aniversario, donde seguí conociendo personas y empapándome en el asunto. Desde entonces he seguido visitando este recinto en numerosas ocasiones, recopilando toda la información necesaria para complementar mis investigaciones que han dado el fruto de 3 libros acerca del tema. Una de las cosas que resaltaron de inmediato es que los testigos de descendencia hispana y afroamericana fueron ignorados completamente por las autoridades y nunca fueron apropiadamente investigados. Ahora sabemos que si no vieron a Lee en esa ventana del sexto piso de ese edificio con rifle en mano, sencillamente no existían para los efectos investigativos. Okay. Those of us who come here to the sanctuary share the same thirst for the truth about what happened to our 35th president. Unfortunately, the government and the media insist on defending the indefensible, a position that a patriot who worked for the government and had no reason to kill would have done this by himself, hitting those shots from that window, something that nobody else has ever been able to duplicate. That fairy tale has come tumbling down like a house of cards. As historians, our goal is to continue investigating and publishing the truth and the true information so that future historians of future generations will revise and correct that history, just like Dr. Denton has just mentioned right now. To finish, I exhort our government to finish this farce, esta farsa, and proclaim the innocence of Lee Oswald now. Terminen la farsa y proclamen ya la inocencia de Lee Oswald y justicia para John Kennedy, and justice for John Kennedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And, you know, sometimes, well, just like I think all of us, we wonder, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? You know, sometimes I never know until after I've done it. But I always find that it was a good thing. And, you know, our country is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And part of the hit of John F. Kennedy, it wasn't just about killing the president, murdering a man. It was about destroying our country, making a big hit against our country. Okay, I mean, you look, you know, I mean, America has always had a lot of voices. Okay, people saying one thing or another, a lot of different languages. Okay, but we always found a way to get along. Okay, but after the Kennedy assassination, our trust in our government, because our government had been taken over by forces that were against the people. But, you know, I had the good fortune of having a man by the name of Edward Haslam call me up one day and say, hey, I've got this book, Mary, Fairy, and the Monkey Virus, and I'm tired of self-publishing it. Would you do it? Okay, so we turned that into Dr. Mary's Monkey, and in it there was a chapter about a lady, Judith Berry Baker. Okay, and you know, I mean, they even sent a fake Judith Berry Baker to Ed Haslam to find out what he knew about the situation. Okay, and so he edited and brought me Judith's book, Me and Lee, and you know, we looked at it. When I first heard about Judy, I said, no way, she'd be dead. Okay, and all of, you know, a lot of people around her were dead and murdered. Okay, and then, you know, she started to talk a little bit about it, And all of a sudden, her car was getting rammed into the intersection. She was having to, go to the hospital and what? Her friends got harassed. And she said, hey, I'm not here to hurt my friends. And so she said, Lord, I can't even live in this country. Okay, so she went overseas. Okay, so we printed her book. And, most authors, they like to sign copies and give to people. Well, the book came out and I said, Judith, will you come and do a signing thing? She said, no, I'm not coming. They tried to kill me and they harassed my friends. Okay, so finally the next year the paperback came out and I said, Judy, will you come? She said, no. And I started to think, and I said, what about Canada? Will you come to Canada? And she said, yes. And I was thrilled. And I said, well, is there a particular time that you'd like to do it? And she said, well, how about Lee Oswald's birthday? And, I didn't even think about it much. I was just so happy she said yes. And so we arranged a book signing in Toronto, and Lord have mercy, Judith came over. Okay, and she wanted to. She said, I want a cake, and I want that picture of Lee with his handcuffs up there on the cake. And so did it, and but still not really thinking about it. And so finally we get there, and we're celebrating Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday, and she's cutting where the handcuffs are. And all of a sudden it came to me, Lord have mercy. That's a political statement that this lady is doing, because we weren't supposed to like Lee Harvey Oswald, he was a bad man, and so we celebrate his birthday. And the next year we celebrated his birthday on the West Coast, and then we start celebrating it in New Orleans. And people started to understand some things, and instead of having just people urinating on his grave, they started putting nice things there. Okay, so it is my esteemed and honored privilege to introduce Judith Very Baker.
Oh gosh, I want to thank all of you for being here to honor JFK. And we want to make sure that you will know how much you are appreciated. To spread the word. JFK set the standards for presidents. He's the kind of president we always want to have. That's why they killed him. So we are all here to honor JFK, John F. Kennedy. And in a few minutes, we're going to do a countdown so that you can be with us at the exact time that JFK was shot. We're going to have a minute of silence. Now, personally, I've been speaking since 1999. I have 5 children. One of them has not spoken to me since. So anyone who thinks that this has been easy, it has not. My book sale money goes to this kind of thing. And we're always going to have some interference, but they're celebrating in their own way, I suppose. But I want to tell you one thing. How much? Okay. I'm not going to speak as long as I'd like to. I just want to say this. I know a man who loved John F. Kennedy. Here we go. Something's going on here. So the police said they would come by at a certain time. So this is interesting. We've had something happening here. I don't know what this is, but it is one thing. This is John F. Kennedy, right? And Dory, maybe he can explain what's going on. I don't know. It looks like we have a parade going on for, does anybody know what that's about? I believe that this is there was a planned interruption, we know that. And the police said that, I don't know what this is about. We believe that we are gonna, well, let's just wait a minute until this is over, if it's over. We knew there was gonna be an interruption of this ceremony, right? We didn't know how it would be done. But from what we heard is that somebody thinks JFK Jr. is still alive. And they said they were going to make sure that all of you heard it. This may be what it's about. So what does that say there? Hooters? Hootie? Well, that's high class. Yeah. So anyway, the police, those are not police, by the way. The police said if they disrupted us, they would disperse them. I guess that's why they're dispersed. They did this instead. They can't disperse them when they're coming down like this. Do you guys think we have opposition to JFK? Yeah. You have no idea the opposition I've had for saying Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill John F. Kennedy. And because of that, I've had to fight this stuff. I've had death threats. Well, you can imagine. Okay. So, I'll put it this way. I know you can't hear me because of this. So this is supposed to be an antique car club. This kid got permission. We paid a lot of money to have the permit here. And so let's celebrate them and see what's going on. Let's hope it doesn't last right there, a moment of silence, that's all. Yeah. Actually, this is neat. I didn't realize it. In Sweden, they have a huge one like this every year. I lived in Sweden a long time. Oh, we lived in Sweden a long, long time. I did, in exile, and we had a car club there. Sweden has more American classic cars than any other country in the world except America. And maybe Cuba. All right, everybody, it's over. So, oh, maybe almost. All right, so now we know who they are. And yes, we also were told that JFK Jr. was going to be here and have his celebration here. Thank you for listening to me, and I apologize for taking your time. I just want you to know I'm on x.com at Judith, Judych. And this is not all I do. My whole job originally was to save people from cancer. Still doing it, working with the best doctors in the world. We do not go along with Big Pharma. All right, Big P is my enemy. Okay, so now Dory is ready. Dory Wiley is going to do the countdown. So God bless you all. Meet me, all right, on x.com. And I love you. That's why I'm doing this, because I want my people to know the truth. We're set free by the truth, as the Lord said. God bless you all. Here's Dory Wiley to get us onto the moment of silence. And thank you, God, that the Classic Car Club has gone finished through. Okay, so thank you. Okay, bye.
The cars were a pleasant surprise, actually. That was kind of a neat collection. It'd been nice to know about it. Anyway, so we have, I think, about 15 minutes before 12:30, which is approximately the time that JFK was shot. So I'm going to ramble for about 14 minutes. And what I thought I would talk a little bit about would be, you're all here today because you're interested maybe in JFK, maybe the assassination, maybe in honoring him or something like that. Most people have a lot of questions about the assassination, and that's probably how all of us researchers got sucked into it, a never-ending black hole of questions, and they come up all the time. And so I would encourage you to meet some of these people, ask your questions, do research. I will tell you, I'm just a truth seeker. Most people are very pure at heart that do this. They're looking for truth. They're looking for answers. And I'm sure you are too. You know, I'm not looking for money. I don't make any money doing this. I run my own company. I work all day, and I do this as a side hobby. But you need to look at facts on your own. I do think since the public, if you polled the public in 1958, the polls showed that they trusted their government, they trusted the media over 80%. And that's reversed today to about 18%. So I think the public is now a little bit more open-minded to the possibility that something crazy or something different went on here. You do need to start with Oswald, as Judith was talking about. I was writing an op-ed for the Dallas Morning News and giving a list of reasons or facts that you might want to question, you know, Oswald's guilt. The one, he said he was innocent. But the one I used for the Dallas Morning News was a quote from Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry, who said, "We could never put that rifle in Oswald's hands in that window shooting the president." Now, that's an interesting thing for the Dallas Police Chief to say. Now, the Dallas Morning News didn't believe me, so I told them to go look at it online. I was working, I was busy. And so a couple of days later, they came back and said, "Well, I couldn't find it." And I said, "Well, you might want to check the Dallas Morning News." And so he went and looked for it. A couple of days later, comes back and he couldn't find it. So I sent him an article, March 4th, 1969. And then he was in disbelief. But that's what you keep finding. Every time you dig, you will find more confirmation of issues that trouble you, that raise your eyebrows. If 6 of the 7 Warren Commission members didn't really believe in the report, why should you? Why should the press? Why should we? If LBJ didn't believe the report, why should you? Why should we? Why should the press keep referring to it? If the House Select Committee of Assassinations didn't believe it, and if the ARRB didn't believe it, why should us? Why should you? Why should anyone believe it? Why does the media keep referring to it? There should be some alternative narratives to at least question what happened. It's not because someone is crazy, according to a memo from the CIA or a grassy knoll theorist. That was all put in a memo in '68, and at the end of the memo, it said, "Please destroy after you read." And it gave a whole narrative on how to deal with conspiracy theories and what to call them and how to marginalize them. And strangely enough, that showed up accidentally in a FOIA request in the '70s, or we wouldn't have it today. The whole thing has been an interesting cover-up. But Oswald, with the first gun that was shown, found was a 7.65 Mauser. It was stamped on the barrel, so if you had a first-grade education, you could read it. Seymour Weissman, who found it, was a policeman who owned a gun shop who was a gun expert. We have pictures of that rifle. We have Weissman on record saying that. We have other policemen confirming that. And yet we show up with a Mannlicher Carcano later on. There's a problem. We have a chain of custody problem. There's no prints on the rifle until later, after the FBI show up in Fort Worth at the funeral home with the rifle and go in the closed door and get Oswald's prints off his dead hand. How do we know that? Because the guy that ran the funeral home is on record for it. So no one's making these things up. He says that, yeah, I had a hard time getting all the ink off his hands for the funeral. Oswald passed a paraffin test. You cannot pass a paraffin test if you fired a rifle that day. And the list goes on and on and on. The timing, the witnesses that didn't see him on the stairs, how their testimony was changed, how the signatures were forged, how they weren't even, one of them wasn't even included in the Warren Commission report. And it goes for Tippett as well. Shells don't match, they report an automatic. Oswald has a 38 revolver. The firing pin doesn't work. The timing doesn't work from the Tippett house. We've got witnesses marginalized, threatened, shot at with different testimony that aren't included in the Warren Commission. It's really, when I first learned those things, it was extremely difficult for me to think, wow, well, maybe he participated. No, he was just happened to be what he said he was, which was a patsy. He was set up to take the fall, and that's not my opinion. I would not even say that. It's not my opinion. And those are facts. I want to encourage you to go look at it for yourself. And the more you dig, the more you will find, and the more you will question. So I do think it's very important that people think for themselves and don't think something because I said it, or these people said it, or the media says it. And I think the culture of the country has really gotten that way, where people are much more inquisitive and they're less likely to be led astray. So please do your homework, because anything that you're dealing with today on misinformation has its roots grounded on that X in the center of that street. Because that's where it started. How are we doing on time? I've got 8 minutes. Okay.
Dory Wiley, a Texan who has been studying this stuff as in his hobby time, he said, but a very serious researcher and a good speaker. I think he made some excellent points. Yeah, that was helicopters up above us while he was talking. He obviously had a voice that wasn't compromised by the helicopters. And well, let me just say hello to everyone in the chat room. Hi, Paula and Jackson, Key, Jason, Cayman, and Corky's here. Donaway, Ryan, and that's about it. Wow, amazing. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I thought it was wow, amazing myself, and I'm glad to have been there and able to shoot the video. I actually have another video where I started recording again in a couple of minutes. So let me cue that up. Okay, just about ready.
Was the most logical place. There's a curve over there on the concrete. You can see where it'd be a great place where you wouldn't be seen on the bridge, on the railroad crossing. And that's a great angle to shoot right up Elm Street, because Elm Street goes right at it. and the angle of the street is down, so it opens up for you, you know. And you think, well, golly, that's an awful lot of shooters, but let's just start counting them off. You know, we've got either one or two up in the back, due to autopsy, one in the front, we've got one in the back, we've got however many you want to say we're in tunneling, we've got one in the dashboard, we've got one through the windshield. There's a sidewalk replacement over here. There's 2 blocks. You can look at that. There's 2 blocks that have been replaced in the sidewalk here. They used to have a skid mark from a bullet. Then it was replaced with a circle, and then they replaced the whole block. There used to be a semi-freeway sign here. It's in the proof, and they had a bullet in it. Bullet in the grass. There's a bullet mark still over by on the other side, where the storm drain is. If you go over there, you can see a little bullet mark to the west of the storm drain. We took out a section of brick over in the middle off of Main Street that they had over in the National Archives. Those are bullet marks beneath the back of the street. You count all those, it's all there. And it's the second marker. Over against the next cartoon. You close your eyes and think about that right now. What do you hear? Boom, boom, boom. You hear 3 shots? But that's 21 shots from 7 guns. It was pretty easy to see, guys. Of course, all of you have seen the Curtis film where someone stepped in the road right next to the president, had his arm up, popping an umbrella. Can't say for sure that was a signal, but it surely looks odd on a sunny day. So let's get ready for the countdown. And what we're going to do is we'll have a moment of silence and then taps, and then we'll have Amazing Grace sung to us. That will come up approximately 12:30. So with 3 minutes to go, you can imagine the president's coming down, 250,000 people cheering Main Street very slowly. And very soon we'll come to take a right here and come this direction on Houston Street. Now, the grassy knoll had been cleared off for some reason. There were some people over there, but there were a few people that started to trickle over here. The mass of people were up that way. Now, I'm not sure why it would make any sense to change the direction of the parade road, bring it over here, and have this all clear when it's perfect for a parade, unless you had something sinister in mind. And I didn't even go into all the Secret Service changes, but we could talk about that another day. I should have done that, probably more interesting to people. I got a couple of minutes. I do want to talk about this 45-degree turn, violation of standard operating procedure. Open window, violation of standard operating procedure. No Secret Service or military, violation of standard operating procedure. No Secret Service on the roofs, violation of standard operating procedure. No policemen in the motorcycles next in the V next to the limousine, violation of standard operating procedure. The Secret Service may called off the running board, violation of standard operating procedure. Slowing to less than 30 miles an hour, and in some cases, people say maybe to a complete stop, violation of standard operating procedure. The whole thing was a violation of standard operating procedure. People say, well, the Secret Service learned that day. No, all those things were in place for many years. It's sort of like saying, well, why would Michael Jordan miss 21 layups in a row that were uncontested? Wouldn't we be able to ask Michael, did you do that on purpose? Versus incompetence? That's a fair question. I got 12:29. I don't have the second hand on here. Do you have a second hand? No one uses a watch anymore with a second hand. Who's got one? Well, I got 12:59. I need to know when it's 15 seconds. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, one. Silent.
Shut up, get up straight.
I'm going to stop it there. Well, what can I say? That's the sound. The military taps. I'm very moved. I think this is a lot of evidence that you've heard in just a short time that people don't forget. The local people of Dallas and the people all come from all over the world to this event are carrying forward the torch, the flame, the reality of truth and seeking justice as all humans must do. Thanks for being with me today here at a special edition of our show, Undo the Coup. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. Bye-bye now.